All right, guys, investing without pain coming at you again with a second video, and it is on FUBO. We're going to talk about some M&As, and let's pull it up here. We have, we're going to grant Smart Investing his wish here, and wanted to do a comparison of previously investigated mergers, timelines we can expect, what the final deal will look like. Will FUBO have to liquidate assets to comply? Stuff like that. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So it led me to do a little bit of digging and investigating as well. So I think you guys will like what we see today. And again, feel free to like, do your subscribe thing, hit the bell. If you don't, I don't really care, but do what you got to do, okay? Main thing here is that you guys are just going to be educated on FUBO. All right, so a little bit about merger and acquisitions. So the Herfindahl-Hirschman Index, SEHHI Index. So this is a measure of like the concentration of businesses and industries, and the regulators use this kind of scorecard per se to assess the competitiveness of mergers and acquisitions. So it ranges from 0, meaning it's highly competitive, there's no issues with monopolies, to 10,000. A score of 10,000 means, okay, it's monopoly, we're not going to let this happen. So the guidelines are if it's less than 1,500, that's considered a competitive industry. They're not going to really think twice about that. 15 to 2,500, that's a moderately concentrated market. And above a 2,500, they say, hey, that's highly concentrated market. We might want to look into this. So mergers that increase the HHI by greater than 200 points in a highly concentrated market are going to enhance market power and face antitrust scrutiny. Okay, back at you here. So, what is the HHI score for the FUBO and HULU plus Live TV merger? So this was announced 4 months ago to combine the virtual multi-channel video programming distributor businesses. That is what FUBO is. That is what HULU plus Live TV is. Now, the HULU plus Live TV has 4.6 million subs. FUBO has 1.6 million subs for a grand total of 6.2 million subs when they merge. Not if, I believe when they merge. So this would make them the second largest multi-channel distributor in North America behind YouTube TV's 8 million subs. So the relevant market, estimate market shares in the multi-channel distributor market, and then we'll calculate a pre and post-merger HHI. So the market consists of YouTube TV, HULU plus Live TV, FUBO, Sling TV, Philo, and others, right? So the DOJ defines the market based on a product, such as the multi-channel distributors, and then geography, such as North America. So that's what we're doing here is the live TV streaming in North America. Here again are the estimated market shares of these. So HULU plus TV, Live TV we talked about, YouTube TV, FUBO. We think there's probably about 0.8 million of Philo, and all the others are some additional ones here. So if we think the total market is anywhere from 18 to 20, we're just going to call that 19 million average subscribers for these multi-channel distributors. And the traditional pay TV has maybe more than 3 times that amount at 70 million subscribers. So to do a pre-merger market share, we just take the total amount of subs divided by the total amount of their subs rather divided by the total subs of the market, which is 19 million. So you can see here, YouTube has about 42% market share. HULU plus Live TV, 24%, and FUBO has 8%. And when we combine these, we're going to get somewhere around like 32 to 33% here. You can see about 33%, we'll call it, which will be slightly behind YouTube TV's 42%. So to calculate a pre-merger HHI score, there's a little formula. This is the sum of the percentage market share. So you can go down here and do like 42% market share of YouTube, and you square that. Then you add all these together, right? And that's going to give you 2,641. So this indicates that this is a highly concentrated market, which is above 2,500. So they're already going to be looking at this as, hey, this is pretty concentrated. If you guys are going to be combining and merging, we might want to look into this. So the post-merger HHI. So this is where we're going to combine and get that 33%. We square it. All the other ones say the same. Add that together, and that's 3,090. So that's still a highly concentrated market. And the HHI increased from 2641 to 3090, which is an increase of 449 points. So according to the DOJ and the FTC guidelines, mergers in highly concentrated markets, which we're in, that increase by more than 200 points, which it does, are presumed likely to enhance market power and typically trigger a significant antitrust scrutiny. That's what we're doing. There's nothing that's changed here. They expected this. I can guarantee you Disney, I know for a fact, Disney and FUBO knew this was going to happen. And I think they're trying to mitigate a few things already. So in order to mitigate antitrust concerns, you need to have separate offerings. So we're going to keep it separate, right? We're going to have FUBO, keep that for the sports. And then Hulu plus live TV, we're going to keep that for the entertainment. So this reduces direct competition within the market. So they can also argue that there's consumer benefits to this merger. It increases consumer choice, flexibility, and it can create lower prices and enhanced options, which can also be pro-competitive. We want competition in this. We don't want to create a monopoly with this. Now, market dynamics. Now, if they're just looking at the streaming, virtual multi-channel distributors, then okay, yeah, it's very narrow. But we could broaden it and say, look, I mean, we're also competing against traditional pay TV, direct-to-consumer streaming services like Netflix. So if they really are looking at this at a broader market, this could lower their HHI. I'm looking at worst-case scenario, which I think you have to. So this does reduce concentration concerns. Now, they've already had a venue sports settlement, which was going to create possibly a monopoly, right? So that this merger resolved an already antitrust lawsuit that was going to happen against venue. So this is pro-competitive in the outcome. So without this deal that is happening between FUBO and Hulu, it probably would have caused an anti-competition concern. So the Disney strategy also of a 70% ownership, they would view this maybe as restructuring rather than a power grab, rather than just like 100%, hey, we're just going to buy all of FUBO and we're going to own it. This is 70%. I think this was very strategic as well. So the limitations of the HHI score, it depends heavily on a market definition. Regulators could include that traditional pay TV like we talked about, and that would, now they could also narrow it down and just say, hey, let's look at just the sports streaming. However, I don't think they're going to do that. We know FUBO has broadened its aspect too, and it's not just a sports. It says, come for the sports, stay for the entertainment, right? So it's not just a sports streaming thing. There are regional variations. However, they both have a national reach. This doesn't really apply. There are innovation factors that could be included in this that might help out with consumers, such as content quality, and it could justify a merger's benefits. So in conclusion here, the post-merger HHI score is 3,090, and it adds 449 points. And that's estimated based on market shares of just the U.S. virtual multi-channel distributor market. The highly concentrated and above threshold for presumed anti-competitive effects, this obviously is going to trigger the DOJ scrutiny. There are mitigating concerns, such as the separate brand offerings. This is going to help, keeping them separate. The consumer benefits from new bundles. Now, they'll have competition from broader streaming markets already. Okay, you have different things out there, the Netflixes, all those things, right? Now, what we're going to talk about here in just a second is there's also precedent from previous similar cases. And this is what leads me to believe that this merger will happen. There might be a few extra things that we don't know about that they're going to ask them to do that I don't think anybody can, surmise, but we're going to just see what the cases were in just a second. So here are some past similar mergers. What I did is I looked up equivalent HHI criteria from the years 2011 through today, where there was a pre-merger of a moderate to highly concentrated HHI, which is what this one has, and then a post-merger of greater than 2,500, signaling that it's a concentrated market, and then an increase of around 200 points or greater after the merger. So this is just stuff that's very similar to what we're seeing today. Obviously, ones that were reviewed and had a clear outcome. In other words, it was approved. It was either approved, blocked, or approved with conditions. I believe, I'll just kind of give you a little spoiler, I believe it will be approved with conditions. So here's one of them. It was AT&T and T-Mobile. We'll start off with the bad one. This one was blocked. The HHI exceeded 3,100 post-merger with plus 700 points. Now, if you remember going back to FUBO, it was around a little under 3,100, but it only increased at about 450 points. Oh yeah, right here actually, 3,090 with about 400 to 450 really points. So AT&T had about 31% of the market share, and it proposed to acquire fully T-Mobile at 12%, and moving them up to 43% market share. This FUBO-HULU merger is only going to be 33%, and remember, Disney's only going to own 70% of that. So the DOJ argument is that this would have led to higher prices, fewer choices, reduced innovation, and there's also concerns with FCC about concentration. So AT&T just ended up withdrawing and paying T-Mobile $4 billion for the breakup fee. So to compare with FUBO, it's similar in the HHI, and both involve immediate telecom. However, there's a larger market share consolidation, and reduction of major competition led to outright rejection. So the FUBO merger would still have a separate brand offering, and also there's smaller market share involved here, 33% instead of 43%. So Comcast and NBC Universal in 2011, this one was approved with conditions. The pre-merger was in that 2 to 3,000 with and post-merger of adding 2 to 400 points. So very similar to Hulu and FUBO. Comcast was 24% of the market share and NBC was 10%, which is around 34% when combined, almost exactly the same as FUBO merger. So this one was approved with conditions. Comcast agreed to license the NBC content to competitors, support online distributors such as Netflix, and relinquish management control over, guess what? Hulu. Okay, so now we're finally coming almost full circle with this Hulu thing. They monitored them up until 2018 with this. So similar HHI range, and both involve media and streaming with Disney's content influence. So FUBO could now face a little bit stricter scrutiny due to this one being a vertical structure, whereas the FUBO and Hulu, they're sort of horizontally on the same plane. Both of them are that virtual multi-channel distributors. Whereas this one was a little bit different with the Comcast and NBC. So good thing is that they're going to maintain separate services, which could mirror the remedies already conditioned here in this approval. So AT&T and Time Warner in 2018 was approved. The post-merger was around that 3,000 mark with only about 150 to 200 points added, though. The regional sports, if you looked at that, because they look at these by regions, right? So it did push the HHI above 3,000 in certain regions of the country. AT&T was about 25% of the pay TV, and then Time Warner had stuff like HBO, CNN, TBS, a little bit different area. So the DOJ argued this could allow to raise content prices and restrict access to rivals. It went to federal court, and they rejected the DOJ's challenge. Now, so this is part of it. I mean, they may say, hey, we're going to try to stop this and block it, and you have to go to court and kind of push this and kick the can down the road a little bit. But they found there's insufficient evidence of competitive harm. So this one approved without any conditions. Horizontal nature suggests a greater scrutiny against FUBO and Hulu merger. However, like I said earlier, Disney's 70% stake echoed AT&T's vertical control. So this might allow approval with conditions like content licensing, getting rid of some things. We'll talk about that in a second. All right, T-Mobile and Sprint in 2020 was approved with conditions as well. This one had a very, very similar post-merger HHI with the increase of around 400 to 600 points. And this one only had 4 major carriers. Okay, very kind of similar to what we're looking at here, 3 or 4 major players in the virtual multi-channel direct stuff. T-Mobile had 17% of the market share. Sprint had 12%, so it's around 29% of the total market once merged. And it would reduce the major carriers from 4 to 3. This one was approved with conditions of T-Mobile divesting Sprint's prepaid business to Dish, providing Dish with spectrum and roaming access, sorry for the typo there, and committing to 5G deployment. So this is nearly identical to what FUBO has right now. Keep wanting to say Hulu and FUBO together. We've got to come up with a better name, right? The NewCo, right? Both reduce competition in concentrated markets. FUBO and venue sports settlement may parallel T-Mobile's pro-competitive commitments, suggesting approval with divestitures or licensing conditions. So what will they have to divest? I mean, it's possible they might come back and say, hey, you guys got to get rid of those regional sports networks, get rid of some of them. Might say, hey, you have to approve certain content, license ESPN to other players. I think they're already thinking of this, and I think they're already doing this, okay? So I don't know what else they could ask them to do, to be honest with you. If anybody else has any ideas of what else they're going to ask the NewCo to get rid of, to divest, to do, put that in the comments. Let me know. Shoot me a message. If you think I missed anything, let me know. All right, here's where we come to a good one. Look who it is, Disney. So they've had experience with this. Their lawyers have had experience with this, right? Disney and 21st Century Fox, approved with conditions. Pre-merger HHI was pretty similar. The points added were pretty similar. Again, there's a range because they look at different areas of the country. So this was in sports and entertainment programming due to Disney's ESPN and Fox's regional sports networks. The post-merger approach a little bit higher, right? 3,000 to 3,500. And Disney had 30% of TV programming and acquired Fox, which is 20% via their regional sports networks and studios. So DOJ focused on the sports programming, where the combined entity would dominate. So they approved this one with conditions that Disney divest Fox's 22 regional sports networks to avoid excessive control over sports. So to compare with the NewCo, similar HHI increase and post-merger HHI, both involve Disney's media dominance. So again, the horizontal nature of this may face a little tougher scrutiny, but divestitures like content licensing could secure the approval, as with like Fox's RSNs that they had to get rid of. So analysis of regulatory trends. So mergers with anything above 2,500 HHI and an increase of 200 points will trigger a DOJ scrutiny. We know that was going to happen. It already happened from what we've heard. And if we would have done the math ahead of time, we would have known and expected this. So increases above 400 often require remedies or face blockage. So I do believe they're going to have to face remedies. Now, maybe they've thought of this ahead of time. They're separating Hulu and FUBO. They're keeping them separate brands. Disney's not acquiring the whole of FUBO, only 70%. So FUBO and HULU market is defined narrowly. It will increase scrutiny. But if they look at this broadly, such as all pay TV, it could lower the scrutiny. And I think this is something that they can use if for whatever reason they try to block them, right? Say, hey, look, we're not just competing with these multi-channel distributors, right? These virtual multi-channel distributors like YouTube TV. We're also competing against Netflix, right? And we're competing against pay TV, Comcast. So I think they have some outs in here. So conditions are likely. Remedies are usually divestitures, content licensing, commitments, and the NewCo or the FUBO venue settlement may serve as like a mitigating factor. They can always go back to it and say, hey, look, this is what we all agreed to do to stop any competitive behavior, and we've already been in trial and pushed this down the road and came to a settlement already. All right, so the HHI profile closely resembles the T-Mobile Sprint and the Disney Fox. Both were approved with conditions. So I believe it's unlikely to be blocked outright, but there may require some remedies. Now, if this gets approved with conditions, now it could say, hey, that's going to shoot this thing right back up to where it was. It could say, oh, man, it depends on what they say, right? I mean, I think we just have to all be prepared for what those conditions may be. Could be licensing Disney content to competitors like YouTube TV. They're already maintaining separate services So they've already done some of these things. Commitments to affordable sports bundles, whatever they say to do, they're going to have those conditions met. So my only concern with all of this would be Disney. This administration is not really too fond, I believe, of Disney. We've seen a lot of stuff with Florida and their Disney parks. So we also have it coming from the other side, right? With Elizabeth Warren there saying, hey, this is going to cause issues. I'm looking at who's paying these people, right? I mean, where are they getting their money from? And those are the ones that are going to be speaking up about this, saying, oh, we don't want this to happen. They don't know any of this stuff. All they're doing is saying whatever their suitors are telling them to say, they're saying it. There's no way Elizabeth Warren is that smart to know what the heck's going on with this merger. But someone's paying her, and so she's taking the money and saying, right? So that's why I kind of think this whole thing is really funny and kind of post little memes about her, all right? So, conclusion. I believe this absolutely will be approved with conditions highly likely. So don't be alarmed if it says, hey, we approve it, but we got some things we have to do first. The path to approval, I was hoping by this summer, the more I look at this and looking at the government agencies now that are going to be involved, this thing is probably going to take a little bit of time. So we're going to have to sit on our shares a little bit, acquire more, maybe even start selling some calls, not with all your shares, right? Just to start averaging down. We can go over that maybe in a future video of how to do that. For those that have a tremendous amount of shares and don't want to use any more capital to buy more. All right, there may be hurdles if we have senators getting involved that are being paid to go against this merger. We already just talked about that. So, timeframes. We can see from 9 months, 13 and a half months, 19 and a half months, 23 months, and then the last one with Disney, though, was 6.5 months. So it absolutely could go quicker. It's already been 4 months. So if they're thinking about this, if Disney has the recent 6.5 month approval with conditions, they may be thinking ahead, and that'd be great if they get this thing done in 2 more months. I mean, hey, we're looking at some good stuff going forward with before football season, right? But then again, if not, that's okay. We're just gonna keep pushing through. So the average time is about 14.3 months. That puts us at about March of 2026. Now, proactive concessions will shorten timelines. I do believe they've already done as much as I think they could, maybe except doing the stuff on FUBO's end, like, hey, divesting some RSNs, because right now that would just kill their business while they wait. So they may just know ahead of time, hey, we're probably going to have to do some of these things, but until then, we're going to do what we can. Media mergers like this can be faster if conditions are clear. I believe the conditions are pretty clear. I mean, I don't think this should take too long to figure out in my mind, but it's the government. We'll see what's going on. I can show you guys in the future that video I believe that someone put out about the new chairman there and how he's going to just let things go through. But again, if it meets those criteria, which it does, they are going to have to look at it. All right, guys, let me know what you think. If this was helpful, if it wasn't, if you have any other ideas of videos. Again, I can go over charts, I can go over options, whatever you want, guys. All right. Look forward to speaking with you guys later. Thanks for joining. Bye.